July 19th. Got some great news today. Mark, what do you got in the market, buddy?
All right. Well, first I'm going to make a prediction. Okay. My prediction is that you know how the term Benedict Arnold is synonymous with traitor. Well,
Absolutely.
my prediction is that one day Joe Biden is going to become the term as synonymous for just being a crooked sleazebag politician. Like, oh, he's a Biden, right? I mean, look at this, dude. Like, look at this. The dude was like talking to Did you see him having that meeting with the president of Israel yesterday? It was
Yeah, and he
like
had his cards.
he's falling asleep. He's incoherent. He's reading off his cards. He's got his legs crossed. He's like, look at how skinny his legs are, man. It's just you don't see this guy with cards, you know.
You know, you look at him, looking at him, going, "This is just an absolute disgrace that I'm looking at this man as the president of the United States." That's what he's thinking.
I hate when this stuff hops down here. Shut up. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, it's just he's everything that the Trump derangement people thought Trump was. Which Trump isn't. But he's crooked. He's a racist. Remember when he said Obama was the first clean African American in American politics?
That was probably the most racist statement I've ever heard, besides him saying that black kids remind him of cockroaches.
I don't know if I heard that one, but I do.
You don't remember that?
When he said,
"Oh yeah, no, he was standing in the middle of a
jungle."
Oh no, he was standing in the middle of a little kids giving a little talk, and he was talking about how when he was a pool guard or something back when he and corn pop, but he was a lifeguard, and the little black kids used to come up and rub his legs on his, so they would see the sun come up on his hair on his legs, and he knew exactly what roaches were like. And I said, "What the hell?" And that was during his campaign. So now you're talking about a guy that's gone 2 years past that. He couldn't keep himself together during that time. Listen, you know what the worst thing in the world is for somebody?
What?
5 to 10 months and not really have any interaction with people. That's the worst thing for those people. And of course, it could be his defense. I mean, once he goes completely flipping stupid, then how can you put him in prison?
Well, he's not going to go to prison. He should, but he's not.
But Benedict Arnold, listen, let's break that down, right? What did Benedict Arnold really do? Okay, he gave away some information. He tried to turn against his country, but this dude has been doing it for 50 years, and he's been caught multiple times now, and nobody's really doing anything. How come we can have Benedict Arnold and we can swiftly go kick his ass, but this cat, he gets to do whatever he wants to do? Is it because we've all become pansies nowadays, Mark, or is it because the law doesn't work anymore? And because the political class has the ability to do whatever it wants to do.
I think we're just an entitled society. You know, it's like John F. Kennedy said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country."
Absolutely.
50 years later, you got people saying, "Well, we owe you," or you're owed the ability to go to college. It's like, listen, dude. It's like one of my favorite lines is from any movie is in Caddyshack when Judge Small says, like, "Oh, the world needs ditch diggers too." Why is it like you're right? College. It used to be like you had to be somewhat intelligent to go. Now it's like, you could have an 85 IQ and some school somewhere will take you as long as some bank will write the check. So, we're just a society of entitlement.
But they also go after these kids in school with predatory loans. I mean, you don't need to give a kid $14,000 for a $7,000 tuition. All you're doing is giving him $7,000 to go party with. And then he's going to turn around and owe $90,000 when he finally starts paying the 14 back. I mean, it's just really a sad state of affairs, and they really should do something more about that shit. And honestly, it goes down to them not teaching financial literacy to these kids in schools. Nobody knows anything about financial anything. You can't even see a kid write a check anymore. My kid, I had to teach him how to write a check. He's like, "What is this?"
Well, anyway, it's pretty sad that the leader of the free world can't get through a meeting without having note cards that he's like sitting here looking at. It's just so disgusting, man. It's just such a shame. Anyway. All right. Well, anyway, let's see what's going on. Oh, another thing I'm angry about is, I'm watching the one of the financial channels this morning, and it's like, oh, Goldman Sachs, they reported, and the market just turned around, and it's like the market was down like literally like 3 basis points.
Yeah.
And then it was like up 3 basis points. And this is what I mean by like how the media gives so much misinformation. Like there's not people out there that are sitting there saying, oh, Goldman did this and let me sell, and I'd move the market by 3 basis points. I mean, 3 basis points is nothing, you
No.
know. Oh, look at this. It's down 52 cents. It's a $336 stock, and it's down 52 cents. Like, that's nothing, I mean, it's just random noise. And we can see here our principles we see on pretty much any chart. Support over here turned into resistance over here, right? So we got people who bought here who like, oh yeah, this is great. It goes up, but then it goes below their price. And a lot of these people say, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have bought the stock. I'm going to get out at break even if I can. So we got these remorseful buyers placing their sell orders at the level that was support. And if there's enough, it turns into resistance. And we see this on a lot of charts, and you can see it right here. So it's not a coincidence that this thing stalled out at, let's see what price level this is here. I'm going to make it 341.50, or that's back in my day, we used to call that 341.5. Yeah. So there you go. We see these on every charts now. I guess this is just an argument of semantics, but say this starts to sell off. Well, is it because we get these anxious sellers undercutting each other because they're afraid they're going to miss out? Or is it because of earnings? Or is it because of both? Well, I don't know. But if I didn't see the earnings, my opinion would probably not be any different. It's like the charts tell more than the fundamentals do. And, it's stalled out because we're at resistance. So I don't know. I mean, that's just a little take on that. But I don't know. It just aggravates me when I put on the news and it's like, oh, Goldman reported and it turned the market around. It was up, 2 basis points and now it's down 2 basis points. I mean, that's just noise. It's just a random noise. And then the people that are trying to figure this out are like, when they come to me or they come to the class, and it's like they're trying to say they're asking like, well, why is this up if this news is going on, or why is this down if this news is going down? Hello, everybody, Mr. Steven, Mr. Sean.
Morning, guys.
Yeah, because it just gives this this erroneous thing about how the market works. And then people end up losing a lot of money. I mean, I know people that these people, they're retire and they got nothing to do and they sit in front of CNBC all day and they try to buy and sell whatever Kramer's talking about or whatever. And I like to say that CNBC has lost more money for people than Ponzi and Madoff put together, and I think it's probably true. Frankly.
Well, people latch onto these damn news networks that tell you how the stocks are going to go, and they get these one guys that have a good personality, and then you're stuck with them, and people get stuck, and then they'll lose and lose and lose, and then finally they're out. It's a shame, it really is.
Yeah, it's kind
of like a pump and dump scheme.
Yeah, well, I think some of them probably think they're doing a good job, but they're not, So
yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, so if you want to learn how the markets work,
stick it out the stock market jobber.
Someone who's there in real life for a long time. All right. Anyway, very, very quiet this morning. Look, they're basically unchanged, but considering the move that we've had, yeah, man, they should look me up, right? Because we want to get a bunch of people, and then we're going to start charging money, but it won't be a lot. But yeah, man, there's a need for this out there. I look at all these things on YouTube, and it's like, I don't want to sound like an ass, but it's like so many of these quote unquote these trading teachers are just like these millennials who just happen to be trading in a good market from 2010 to 2021. So they think it's easy. And now that, this rising tide lifts all boats. And you got that, with that warrior trading. When I first started the Benzinga trading school, which was coming up on
right here.
Coming up on 2 years ago, or they told me that this was our main competition. Warrior
trades.
It's like warrior, and to me that's so dumb because it's like
warrior trading or something like that. Yeah, he's going to combat every day.
It's like it's like why is it a war? There we go, warrior trading. Why is it a war? And why are you a ninja? I mean, to me, I think we're students of the market. So these guys had to pay millions of dollars in fees or fines for deceptive advertising, and they probably have tons and tons and tons of members. I mean, if they could afford to pay $3 million, let me see. Warrior Trading Funds. I mean, I don't know. I just don't like that whole mindset. I mean, if it works for someone, if it works for people, I guess good. But I don't think that's the right way to approach it. Warrior, I'm gonna put reading. Man, I'll tell you.
They probably scrubbed him since he paid that $7 million fine for pumping and dumping stocks.
Well, it's on the if the FTC you can't take that down.
It's right there, man. It's all over the place. Warrior Trading Reviews, YouTube chat room, lawsuit. There you go.
Yeah. All right. $2.9 million. So these guys are raising a lot of money. But I mean, they're doing a lot of business, and there's just so much I disagree with about this. Is first of all, like, who wants to see this guy trade? Like, who the hell cares? Everyone has a different personality,
right? Everybody pushes their own button.
Anyone who does any kind of research. So if these guys could afford to pay $3 million to people, they're doing a lot of business. And it's pretty sad. I mean, it's hard to believe that this place is still in business. I mean, anyone who's intellectually curious does a little bit of research on them, and they're going to see this. But you get these people that think like, oh, this guy's going to tell me what to do. He's got a really nice website, how to day trade without $25,000, margin for cash. So I guess these are all good for newer people. But I don't know. Let's see what a momentum strategy is here. Momentum strategies for beginners, a step-by-step. I mean, I'll give you this. The site looks really nice. And it's
that's the whole thing, is that they put together a really fluff-filled website that just has a lot of stuff where you're more video. We're just basically giving information out, Mark, and trying to give people the levels and the price action. I mean, that's really all it is.
We don't need all this. We don't need all this fluff because we know what we're talking about. So we don't need to camouflage it.
And part of what you're doing, not giving exact specific entries and exits, by giving people the option of going, here's a bear and here's a bull chart, and this is what it can do. That's better off for them to make their own decisions, as far as you don't need to lead people around. That's bad.
I mean, it's all right. So this dude makes maple syrup. Okay. That's like, oh, gee, I'll trade with him.
Kramer makes sauce. Kramer has a sauce brand now.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he makes like spaghetti sauce or some shit.
Ross becomes a full-time day trader. I would say it probably began in 5th or 6th grade when I learned my great uncle made a fortune in the stock market. Okay. I was reading this other guy's, I forget the name of it, but it said that he found enlightenment when he was at a Buddhist temple in China. And that because of that, he's able to trade. All right. So he was in New York City. All right. Well, anyway, enough of this guy. So the market's really pretty quiet, but we might have cleared this 450 resistance, and resistance is a bunch of sellers. And, we stalled out there for a few days, and for above that, then it tells us that those sellers are gone, but it's going to take a couple days to know. And the key to look for is if there's a little bit of retracement, does this 450 level turn into support? And if it does, then that sets the stage for the next move higher. Unfortunately, it takes things go up slower than they go down. So it might take a few days, but the fact that we're not really giving back any, even though we had a really good 2 days, but we're not giving back anything is a sign of what we would call good action, which is something you can't really quantify, but you would think after a big move in 2 days.
It's been a while since we've had some good action too.
So after being up 3.5% in 2 days, the fact that there's no there's no profit taking or whatever, it's probably a good sign. So next stop, I got 462 here, and that's because this is the little top back here.
Welcome, Eric.
Oh, hello, GTI.
Hey, GTI. Good to see you again.
The guy in my Discord group, huh? All right. So anyway, so that's our S&P, and now we're going to go look at our technology sector, which is the biggest sector. Now, this is kind of interesting that you don't aren't hearing people talk about this, but this is at an all-time high now. So think about that. Our technology sector is at an all-time high. So it surpassed the peak of late 21, right? So this is the
Mm-hmm.
peak here, and this is. Let me actually somehow I got this on weeks. I'm going to go to days. Yeah. Okay. So this is back in 21, and a lot of times when we get to a former peak, we run into resistance, and that's because when we look at these charts, we're looking at psychology, right? It's not astrology, it's not tea leaves. It's, if viewed correctly, it's a graphical illustration of investor psychology. And I can understand why people do think it's tea leaves in astrology, and that's because there's so many technical analysts that don't seem to really know what they're doing, because they don't get the principles. Like, they might say, okay, well, sometimes there's resistance at former peaks, but they don't really know why. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason why is because you have people who bought here who regret doing so when the price goes lower, and they tell themselves, hey, if I can get out of this at break even down the road, I'm going to. So they wait, and when it gets back up to their price level, you have these remorseful buyers placing sell orders. So that makes the level that was resistance stay resistance. So when a market's going higher, there's not enough supply or sell orders and to fill all the buy orders or demand. So the buyers are forced to pay premiums, and that forces us into an uptrend. When we get to resistance, all of a sudden there is enough supply to fill all the demand. And some of the investors who want to sell start looking around, and they say, hey, guess what? The price isn't moving higher anymore. That must mean there's other sellers coming into the market. So I'm worried that some of these sellers will sell at a lower price than me. And I got to lower the price I want to sell it, because those buyers are going to go to who's ever willing to sell at the lowest price. So you get this snowball effect. Again, it's like some weird feedback. You hear that?
Yeah, you're coming back some here. Let me mute my mic. Maybe it's from my side.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's probably picking up my voice on a little bit of a delay. All right. So yeah, so now that we're above this, again, it's going to take a couple days to see if we hold. But the fact that we had a big day and we're up again this morning is some good action. And when we get above resistance, what does it tell us about supply and demand? It tells us that the investors who created the resistance with their sell orders have left the market. So, anytime you take supply off of a market, you sets the stage for a move higher. And now what we want to look for over the next few days is, do we get action like this, right? See how resistance levels can convert into support, like down here, resistance converts into support. It's really kind of amazing. Resistance turns into support. Resistance turns into support. So now we will have to see if this resistance turns into support. That sets the stage for another move higher. I mean, unfortunately, it requires patience. I know everyone wants everything to happen, on the first day, but it's just, these are huge markets. Also, something you should think about is what these charts actually show. A lot of people say the market, you can't outtime the market, or, the market follows a random walk. And most people are wrong. They just don't know what to look at. Think about this. This is the technology sector. This is worth trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. Yet somehow it had the same exact valuation in December of 21 as it did in June of 23 and as it does now. Somehow in between here and there, we lost, 30%, and then we got it all back. And you can't explain that unless you understand that this is psychology. There's no logical reason fundamentally, meaning if you look at price to earnings and dividends and things like that, there's no logical explanation for why this could happen. But if you understand that this is psychology, then you understand why it happens. Now, why do we have this phenomena of resistance turning into support? Well, it shows seller's remorse. There's people who sold that thought they made a good move when the market goes lower, but then it goes higher. And a lot of these people tell themselves, damn, I made a mistake. I'm going to buy my shares back, but only if I get them at the same price I sold them at. So every remorseful seller is placing buy orders. And if there's enough, it converts the level into support. And we can see that's happened here. And this just shows you how some price levels are just more important than others. And that's just how markets are. Some price levels aren't really that important. Some price levels are. Like, why did this turn right at 144 and not 142? Or not 145. I mean, I don't know. We got the resistance here right at 144, became support. The best traders let the markets tell them what to do. They don't come in with any kind of preconceived ideas. And it's, it's not an easy thing to do, but with some practice and some discipline, you like when we go through the sectors to look for trading ideas, we're not just saying, oh, today I'm going to trade Tesla, or today I'm going to trade this, or today I'm going to trade that. We look for things that look like they're going to move, and then we keep an eye on them. And then if they start to move, then we jump in. All right. So the next sector is look at is healthcare, which is our second biggest sector. And it's kind of not really been doing much. It's kind of, I mean, it had a decent day yesterday, but we're kind of in this range here. All right. So then the big sector I think we got to watch. Different sectors drive the market at different times. And I think now it's kind of all about financials to see whether we're going to make another move forward in the broad market. So the S&P is 11 different sectors. So different sectors are in the driver's seat at different times. Up until about 2 weeks ago, it was the tech sector, and everyone was talking about how narrow the rally was. In other words, just a few big stocks were really driving things higher. The indices are based on, well, the S&P, for example, is based on market cap. So the bigger the company, the more influence it has on the index. So if you take like our 5 biggest companies like Apple, Microsoft, these guys are like 30% of the S&P 500. So it's 500 stocks, and you got 5 that make up about 30%.
Mark, you have a question here from JTI. I got it on the screen.
How many different ways are there to trade a stock? It's almost like infinite. Depends on your personality. But the people that are successful have the same, whether you're a technical trader or a momentum trader, but I guess a momentum trader would be a technical trader. There's almost an infinite amount of strategies because everyone thinks different. But the people that are successful have the same characteristics. Like they don't take big losses. They understand it's about psychology. They don't overtrade. Yeah, so like the same thing for JTI. There really is no right answer to that. It's got to be like whatever you're comfortable with. Some people really like to analyze companies. They like to read the earnings reports and go through the annual reports, and those people tend to be people that have like longer term buy and hold strategies. Some people have really high energy and they love being involved in the markets, and they end up being day traders. So there really is no right answer. You got to figure out like what works for you. Like look at all these indicators here, right? So people think having a lot of indicators on your screen is like a model, but it's not. You got to know like what you're doing with them and what your rules are. But when you put on an indicator here, it's like, say you give someone a guitar, right? Like it's a guitar, but they got to figure out how they're going to play. Are they going to be a blues player? Are they going to be like a rock and roll player? Are they going to be, I don't know, whatever, flamenco player or classical? So yeah, you got to just, ask yourself like what fits your personality. And then also too, you got to ask yourself, what's your risk tolerance? Like what's the most you'd be willing to lose on any trade of your capital? So say you say to yourself, all right, I got X amount of dollars. The most I'll ever possibly lose is 5%. So you got $10,000 and you say, all right, the most I'll lose on a trade is $500. So if I buy 100 shares of this, and how far would it have to go against me for me to lose $500? That'll be where I get stopped out. So yeah, so there really is no right answer. You gotta kind of just figure out what works for you. Like if you made Tom Brady a linebacker, he probably wouldn't be very good, right? But as a quarterback, he was great. You see that? I thought this was kind of funny. Well, not that our president needed note cards, but all these Patriots now are saying how Bill Belichick really isn't that smart, and it was all because of Brady. And I was reading that this morning.
Brady always seems sharper than Bill.
Like I used to say, like people would, because I live in New England and I'm a Patriots fan, and people hate the Patriots. So over the years, there's been a lot of times where I've been playing golf or whatever, and people are like, oh well, Tom Brady's not that good. He's a system quarterback, and it's like, Bill Belichick's this genius. And my response is, if Bill Belichick is such a genius, if you can even be a genius at football, it's kind of, it's not like you're Oppenheimer or Mozart.
Well, no, wait a minute. Some of them, though. I mean, look at what Saban's done. Saban's like a masterful technician.
Well, anyway, like there were years where the Patriots had the worst defense in the NFL, but they won the Super Bowl. It's like when you're putting up 50 points a game, it's easy. All right. Anyway, let's go back and talk about this momentum indicator here. This is showing that we're overbought. So that means that it's just overstretched to the upside. We're trading above what would be its typical or usual range. So that's going to draw some sellers into the market. So that could put a top on it here. So we're trading down just a little bit. But I think this is going to be the most important thing to watch over the next few days to get insight into which way the broader market's going to move. And then within the sector is the industry, and this is the banks. And we can see this is very overbought. But if it spends a little bit of time consolidating, and if the level that was resistance converts into support, that sets the stage for another move higher. So I think those are probably the two most important things to watch. Let's look at some of these other sectors. Industrials. Yeah, see, now this is consolidating a little. See how they got overbought? Sometimes when you get an overbought reading like you do here, it doesn't necessarily say that we're going to reverse and go lower, but it could say that, all right, well, we got to like kind of catch our breath and consolidate a little bit. And that's kind of what's happened over the last few days here. But this is pretty amazing here, the move in industrials, especially because in the manufacturing sector, there's a recession going on. The country's not in a recession because the services sector is expanding, but the manufacturing sector is contracting. But anyway, sometimes we got to understand that the markets are not necessarily really connected to the news. All right, so that's pretty interesting there. Let's go Cowboys. Are you down in Texas where it's like 120 degrees? Man, that's something. I went to UConn, and UConn won the national championship in basketball, and it's just so much more fun watching college sports than watching the pros. I mean, at least for me, it's instead of having all these like huge egos and all this stupid commentary, like, oh, the integrity of the game. It's like, dude, it's a freaking entertainment, it's like every team cheats. Who's the biggest cheating scandal in history is the Broncos tried to, get around the salary cap with, what's his face there, Mr. Bartand. What's that?
I said, what kills me is the commentators, man. You'll know immediately who they're pulling for before the game even starts. I'm a Gator fan, and I don't know if you ever watch CBS Sports when the Gators are playing, but if they play an FSU or LSU, my God, it's like, oh boy, look at this, look at that. The Gators are trash. It's always the same way. I mean, the game's called that way. It's disgusting as a Gator fan to have to watch that.
Well, think about, all right, let's look at Spygate, which I will give you some credit on. I think Deflategate was just the dumbest thing ever. I mean, that these old guys went into the bathroom, deflated all these balls. But, so, all right, so Spygate. So you got a cameraman who kind of sneaks over there and is where he shouldn't be. That's like one guy. And then I guess Belichick did about it. Look at when they tried to bring in Elway and get around the salary cap. I mean, everyone in the front office must have known. Everyone in the accounting department must have known. They did lose a first-round draft pick and have to pay $1 million fine, so I'm not just making it up. All right, anyway.
That's the way it should be. You should punish people. They got to get hurt in the pocket, man. That's how you punish people that have too much money.
Yeah. All right, so anyway, so we got resistance again. Like I said, we tend to run into resistance at former peaks. Here's a good example of how resistance becomes support. I like it when Tony Romo calls games because
Romo's good, man.
Yeah, because you learn like how like an actual football player really thinks.
Yeah,
and it's like he's always right. He's always like, all right, well, this looks like it's going to be this, and then.
And he calls it agnostically, kind of the same way that we look at the charts.
Yeah. All right. So we got resistance became support. Support becomes resistance. And there's some other sectors, but they're pretty small. Like, so this is materials. This is only about 2% or 3% of the market. So this isn't really going to have much of an influence on the broader market like the bigger sectors we just looked at. But this is a pretty good example of what we call market memory, right? This $81 level was important for 2 years going back to here. So support turns into resistance, came support in here. I mean, this is a month. And this is 2 months. So support becomes resistance. Anyway, this is getting up to where there's probably going to be resistance. So like one of the things you can think of is, all right, this thing gets to resistance and it starts to roll over and it starts to go lower. Well, remember, this is the sector. So this is the combination or the aggregate of all the different stocks that are in the sector. And this is an ETF. So we can go look at the ETF fact sheet and see what companies are in it. So we type in XLB and we go to the State Street website because they're the people who run these funds. And
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, the 1 year the Patriots went to the playoffs since Brady left, they only beat one team in all season. They only beat one team that went to the playoffs, so they played a pretty weak schedule. All right, so anyway, these are the top 10 holdings. So if we think the sector is going to roll over, and we could start looking for some of these stocks that might be rolling over more, because remember, the sector is just the aggregate. And then we look for some possible trades on the downside where we would be buying puts. So let's see. Lynn is the biggest. All right. I don't know about this. It's a little bit overbought, so it might turn. And that's actually a pretty big move here. This could potentially roll over. I think it's good to sometimes to look for, if you're an options trader, it's good to look in some of these quote unquote boring sectors because the premiums are going to be less. And if you go into like tech, right, where look at that, so support becomes resistance. If you go into like Tesla, the premiums are outrageous because everyone's trading Tesla. But how many people, was the last time you heard someone say, "Oh, I bought puts on Air Products"? Seriously.
I don't think I've ever heard that.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. So you can get cheaper premiums. All right, yeah. Sherwin-Williams. I got to pay my back deck, man. I'll probably be using some Sherwin-Williams. Yeah, now this looks a little overstretched and overbought. See, this shows that we're overbought. But there we go. Yeah, so if this sector really starts to roll over, there's a good chance that this comes in pretty good. So I'm not saying to get into it now because we have to wait for the market to tell us what to do. But if we start to reverse, there's probably going to be some good opportunities here. Freeport.
Guys, if any of your trades turn out or anything that we've shown you here turns out, send an email to Mark so we can either put it on our testimonial page on the website or at least give you a shout out for the next day or when he does a video at night. If you have any charts you want him to cover, send them to him and let him take a look at them. Maybe he can throw them in a video for you.
All right. So what do we got next here? Ecolab. Ecolab ECL. I'm not really seeing much here. But anyway, I'm just showing you a potential way to look for trading ideas. You look for, as traders, we want things that look like they're going to move imminently. And by that, I'm in this time frame, I'm looking, over the next few days or the next week. I mean, obviously, if you're a day trader, you're going to be looking at shorter time frames. But when does stuff move, right? Well, when it gets to resistance, like here, this thing has got a couple more points in it. If it gets up to around 178, I'd be watching this. Look, this tends to sell off pretty rapidly. And then down here, we got our resistance, becomes a support level, support. There's just some price levels are more important than others, and that's just how it is. I mean, and that kind of really refutes the whole notion of random walk, because if things followed a random walk, every price level would have the same importance. Let's see, Cortiva. Oh, what the heck am I doing? Cortiva. Cortiva, CTVA. Yeah, no, we can see here this is below an important level. So if it gets up to there, then that might roll over. It's actually pretty close. So again, if materials sector starts to roll over, this will probably start to move lower. We wanted to look at things, and when you come up with your ideas, think about like what's your price target and how do you figure that out? Well, you let the market tell you what to do. You put your price targets at former resistance levels or former support levels. And then if you got maybe 3 or 4 different ideas, just go through the math and think like, oh, if this gets to my target, I'll make 8%. If the other idea is, hey, if this gets to my target, I'll make 4%. Well, then your capital is going to be better off in the place where you make 8%. And you got to consider your losses too. It's really important to have stop loss strategies. And that's because the best traders, they take losses, but they don't really take big losses. Look at that. Support turns into resistance. They don't take big losses. And a stop out strategy is like, say you buy something and it's going your way and you got a profit. And now you say to yourself, all right, well, if this thing reverses, like I'm going to get out of it. And most people use percentages. They'll say like, oh, okay, if it reverses by 3%, I'm going to get out of it. Some people do points if it reverses by 2 points. Some people say if it reverses below this price level. But the idea of trading is to not be actually right. All right. The idea is to like make money. So if you buy something at 50 and it goes to 60 and you tell yourself, well, I'm going to get stopped out if it reverses by 3 points and it goes back to 57, you sell it and you made 7 points. You can't think to yourself, I should have sold it at 60. I should have been perfect, because no one is perfect. But if your account is growing up in value, then you're doing your job. I hear that a lot, JTI. When I meet people and they tell me that, like, okay, I had some issues with my trading here, like 90% of the time, it's because they're either guessing or they have a strategy that they don't follow, or maybe they're over trading. One of my favorite quotes, and I'm paraphrasing, but Jesse Livermore, who was this great trader, 100 years ago or so, he said something along the lines of, I made my money not by being in the market, but I made my money by being out of the market. And I think what he was referring to is he stays on the sidelines until he sees something that's really compelling. Like, he doesn't force it. He doesn't over trade. If he goes through a bunch of charts and doesn't see anything that looks like it's going to move, it's like, all right, well, maybe I'll just take today off and, go for a walk or go to the park or something. You don't have to force it. You don't always have to be in the market. And one of the worst things you can do is start trading if you've had some losses to try to make the money back, because then you start to get panicky. And it's the old saying is, right, if you've dug yourself into a hole, the first thing you got to do is stop digging. And it's the same is true if you have a really good day. Maybe you take a day off, because sometimes when people have really good days or a run of success, they get arrogant, they get overconfident, and that leads to mistakes as well.
Done that.
All right, so let's go see what's going on in the news today. Jet setting heat. Wow, look at that. World bakes under extreme heat. Huh. Well, we've definitely been having some crazy ass rain around here.
And it's rained every day down here.
Carvana. Let's take a look at that.
Not bad, though. Like a 20, 30-minute cooling rain. It's kind of nice. Humidity goes up, but then it kind of breezes out. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, look at this Carvana. Oh, wow. What's going on this morning? It's up for $15.
Listen, I don't know. There's a lot of business going on in these car markets right now. A lot of repos going down. A lot of car lots overselling cars for too much. Prices of cars are way too high.
Oh, wow, look at their earnings. They're good. You know what's pretty funny is the backstory here of the Carvana, of the Garcia family, like the people that started Carvana, like they got in all kinds of trouble like years ago, and some people are saying it's like kind of the same thing. Let's see if I can find it here.
Usually, if they get caught the first time, it's just been repackaged and sold again the second time the same way. I was thinking more on this Lockheed Martin. The reason why that stock's getting smoked and their margins are so shrunk now, it's because of the inflation and the back inventory of rockets that they've just used. They've used all their inventory. So now they're having to make them since the third quarter of 22. So that's why your operating margins have shrunk so bad. Inflation and the cost to build the newer rockets since they've used all the older rockets.
Oh, for Lockheed Martin, you mean? Yeah, this is pretty interesting. If you're interested in Carvana, you should do a little bit of research because this guy got in big trouble. Source of wealth, billionaire, unbelievable. Yeah. I think the inflation is definitely starting to become an issue because, like, when I go to the store, I hear people talk about it, and when you hear people that aren't like involved in the market start talking about the market, then you know that something's going on. And I mean, the food prices are just outrageous. And then there's also this like shrinkflation. Like, I got a bag of ice and I realized it's like, wait a second, the price is the same, but there's less ice in it now. It used to be like a 5-pound bag. Now it's like a 4-pound bag.
Dude, I make this ice cream and it's like you got to get this specific vanilla ice cream to make it. It's just the way I flavor it. That's the one that works the best. Man, I went in Publix yesterday. It was $10 for a gallon. I was like, this is ridiculous. I can't pay $10 for a gallon of ice cream. I'm just not going to do it.
What did it used to be?
About 5.5, 7 tops.
Wow.
I haven't bought it in about a year because it's a specific kind of ice cream. But I'm gonna wait until we get a new president. Probably 7 or 8 years before the sticky inflation goes away.
Well, listen, if we get a new president and we change our energy policy around, we're going to see prices start to come down rapidly. That's, and hopefully we'll get a president who doesn't need to use cue cards to get through what should be a basic meeting.
I know.
Which is just such a disgrace. It's
almost the real bad part about it, Mark, is that the people that are parading him around as a cognitive person, they're really committing elderly abuse. Because honestly, I mean, listen, one day you and I are going to be in the same guy's situation. Hopefully not, but maybe. And they're parading him around like a normal human being when he doesn't even know where he's at. It's sad, man. It's criminal. There's people, I bond people out of jail all the time for this kind. It's called elderly abuse, and it's a big ass bond.
Well, I don't know, man. He could be. I don't think he's going to be around much longer. I think all this stuff was, the dam is breaking, right? And there's no honor amongst thieves, right? So once that first person goes down, they're going to start singing like a canary, And they got Hunter Biden's business partner, right? Devin Archer. I mean, the guy is like going to jail. It's like, so he'll be willing to sing like a canary.
Oh yeah. Well, they had this Tony Bobulinski from the start. They must have pissed Tony off, or Tony saw the writing on the wall and he started chirping before the election even went down, and nobody even listened to that guy. It's amazing.
Well, supposedly they got tapes of the guy who's the head of Burisma talking to Biden, giving him a bribe. So if that's true, I mean, it's all over.
Oh yeah.
Even the most staunch Democrats wouldn't even be able to back that. And they want him out of the way anyway. Listen, Obama runs the Democratic Party, and the day before Biden announced his reelection campaign, Susan Rice quit the White House, right? Susan Rice is like Obama's like right-hand conciliary. And they must have told Biden, we don't want you to run again. And he said, F you, I'm going to. I'm the leader. So Susan Rice quits. I don't think that's a coincidence. I really don't.
No.
The timing is just You know, the day before he announces she resigns. So that could tell you that if Obama doesn't want him in there anymore, it's over for him. So anyway, but it's really sad. You know, all we heard for 4 years was, oh, you know, Trump's doing a bad job handling COVID. Trump this, Trump that. Then we get a new president, and he goes to China, and he doesn't even ask him where the virus came from. You
He
know,
knows where
and
the
it's
virus
like
came from.
it's like I don't even know what to say. It leaves me speechless.
Can we go back and look at these Walking Dead on the street there in Philadelphia? Did you see these people? Scroll down. You might have missed it. There's these people. There you
These
go.
people there.
Look at these son of a bitches. Can you believe that? And you know what's going to end up happening? Those people right there are going to be on welfare, and they're going to be using government assistance for the rest of their lives, and we're going to be paying for it. And that ain't right.
Zombified trank addicts. Wow, I never even heard of that.
Oh, they're shooting themselves up with tranquilizers, and then this is how they get stuck. I mean, you know, you just got to be really, really bored and really, really sad to want to do that to yourself. And how do you wake up?
Yeah,
going, man, I've been dangling here for 2 hours in a position. I've had everything I've gotten stolen from me, but it feels good. Let's do it again tomorrow.
Oh God, shut up. I hate when all this stuff happens. All right, shut up. All right. God, I really hate all this pop-up advertising, man. All right, so wow. So this is a zombie drug, some kind of tranquilizer?
Yeah, it's in Philadelphia is what the story was like when I was reading it yesterday.
Well, if it's in Philadelphia, it's got to be other places.
Oh, yeah. Man, have you not watched any of the stuff about like San Francisco and Seattle? I mean, the people in the streets there, that shit's Mark, I know you've been down to your city. New York.
I don't even go into I don't go into New York anymore.
Yeah.
I haven't been there in years.
Bad.
My wife went like, I don't know, a couple months back and to meet her sister to have dinner, and she's like, Mark, you won't even believe it. You know, it's like, and I worked in the city for 10 years. And now I went to business school at Greenwich Village. And she's like, there's so many, these immigrant camps and these homeless camps. And she was on the Upper West Side, which is usually really nice.
Yeah.
All right. So the queues, I think maybe I would say it's probably going to be resistance around 400, the old nice round level. So, you know, it looks to me like it's going to keep continuing. You know, the trend is, when something's in a trend, you got to just assume that it's going to remain in that trend until there's a reason for it not.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if I would buy it here, but if I was long it, I don't think I would sell it. My target would be up around 400. I mean, it is overbought. Another possible strategy, which I didn't mention for stopping out, is just a trend line.
Yeah.
Like, say you buy it down here. You say, all right, well, I'm going to just ride along. As long as it's north of this trend line, I'm going to stay in it. If we cross the trend line, then I'm going to blow out. So that would be an example here of an exit strategy, right? Every trade should have an exit strategy. Like, you shouldn't get into a name without knowing how you're going to get out. So just say hypothetically you bought this here. Well, what are your options for getting out? You're either going to get stopped out or you're going to get to your target. So the target's up around 400. So that's easy. Now you buy it here and it starts to go your way. And you can say, all right, well, if we cross this trend line, I'm going to get out. It might not get to my target, but I'm going to make a profit and I'm going to walk away with some money. So you're letting the market tell you. Now, someone else might say, all right, well, if it reverses by $3 or $5, then I'll get out. But using the trend line is a pretty effective method here, right? So you're going to just stay in as long as we're above that. And if you just think about how charts are made, a trend line is really just like a graphical illustration. It's not a support level or a resistance level. But if you just think about how charts are made, right? If something is trending higher, we record the price higher. Just say for a week it stays the same price. Well, that shows that when we're going higher, there's too much demand. There's not enough supply. When we go sideways, it shows that we've gotten back into equilibrium. Supply and demand are equal. And a lot of times when something's going up, it starts to go sideways before it starts to go down because it's like a slow takeover from the bulls. The bears are taking over. So if we just have 3 or 4 days where the price doesn't change, we're going to end up crossing the trend line, and that would be your signal to sell. So, but yeah, all that being said, I think this has some more room to go here. And I don't know if you what time you joined us, but I think it's pretty important. And this is another thing with the damn media. It's like the tech sector, which is the biggest sector in the market, is at an all-time high, like all time. And I haven't heard anyone mention it other than me. So, if we get some consolidation here, that'll set the stage for another move higher, and then the Qs probably will get to 400. You see this? They served a warrant for Tupac, which is this crime has been solved, man. Some guy that he like bumped into at the casino ended up shooting him, and then that guy got caught and went to jail for something else, and then he died. So I don't know what this is all about. Probably some cops just trying to get on TV.
Probably. I always thought it was Biggie. Biggie took him out.
No, it was some guy who was like some no-name guy, like some no-name gang member that felt like he was disrespected. So he shot him. At least according to the show I watched. The other thing too that gets me is like, this whole thing with Amelia Earhart. It's like she crashed, the Japanese took her prisoner, and she ended up dying in a Japanese prison camp. And there's all this mystery of like where is she or whatever. There's people. I don't know what country it is, but where she crashed, they had on the stamps, like the stamps from like 50 years ago, her plane, and there's all this like talk about, she's on this island. Let me just,
it's all about the mystery, Mark, and the dime store books they could sell back then. You know what I mean? Nobody had a way to even find out where the damn plane had crashed unless you actually physically went out and looked at it. There was no Google Earth, none of that fancy stuff. So,
well, there was this show on where they actually had a picture of her, and you could see like in the background there's a Japanese ship towing her plane in the water, and then someone came out and said, "Oh, here we go, right here." Okay, so that's her, and if you look in the background, it's hard to see. But someone from Japan came out and said, "Oh, wait a second, that can't be right. That picture is from 1926, and she got crashed in 1925 or whatever. I don't remember, but there's a bigger picture of this, and you could see her boat getting or her plane getting towed. And in this country, they actually had her on the stamps, and people still are like, oh, like where is she? So anyway. Of course, they didn't want to tell. We got to remember when this. Oh, here we go. You got to remember when this was, man. This was, the Japanese are starting to take over the Philippines, and so they didn't want to. So there's her partner. So they didn't want to, they come out and say, hey, the most famous woman in the world is in a Japanese prison camp.
So we covered it up.
You could see, you could see they're like towing the plane, and. So anyway, this was a big special on some news channel, and I watched it. And then like the next day, the Japanese embassy came out and said, "Oh, that can't be right because that picture is from the wrong year." And everyone just kind of dropped it, like they just took their word for it. But I don't know. I mean, it looks to me like it's her, and that's her partner, and there's the plane, and this country had stamps with her plane on it. So I don't think you need to be too much of a genius to figure it out, but
that's funny. Really, it is funny.
Look, you can tell it's him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got the same hairline. Anyway. All right. Well, anyway, I'm going to get going because I'm already late for my 8:45 call. But so this is, like we started this morning, we're talking about how people are so stupid. And it's like, dude, this crime has been solved. It's like, or this mystery has been solved. Why are there still shows? Like, what happened to Amelia Earhart?
Yeah.
I mean, what happened to her is she went to a Japanese prison camp and she probably died a horrible death. So, which is a shame. But anyway. All right, everyone.
You never know. You never know. Listen, guys, like, subscribe, and share this thing with all your friends. Let's see if we can get a lot of people in here and we can start helping more folks become excellent traders. Thank you. Y'all have a wonderful day.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See you tomorrow.